It was a happy coincidence this week that we attended a training in Spanish for Spanish teachers or teachers who have Spanish classrooms, um, teachers who wanted to brush up on their Spanish skills. So one of the topics that came up was the whole variance, and so the activities that Mrs. Delgado, she's the bilingual director for one of the districts in Houston, she gave us all little cards and stacks of cards, and in that stack of cards there were different visuals, different images, and so what she wanted us to do in our groups was to discuss what are the different ways to say, this, so she had different pictures. She herself is from Puerto Rico, so she was able to give us that kind of outlook. For example, a picture of a t-shirt came out, so we all said, well, playera or camiseta, these, so that we can expand on that. When it came to words, for example, like, well, earrings, so we said aretes, arrecadas. That's normally, what we'd heard from our family members who came from Mexico. And then, so she also brought in, but in Argentina, they'll call them aritos. And that in Puerto Rico, they'd call them pantallas, which is, pantallas is what we would call a screen, here in and from the Spanish that we know, and especially from our parents that came from Mexico, also our family that came from Mexico. They kind of give us this vocabulary. Another one that came up was the clothespins, which, well, we call them horquillas, and she gave us one from España. They call them pinzas. Another example was the bus, which we call autobús. Yet in some parts of Mexico, they would probably say camión or combi. The smaller ones are called combi. I know España is also autobús, and that in Puerto Rico they call it guagua. And another example that I thought was now we start seeing, our valley talk, and this is more language that has been developed from second generation Mexican Americans, meaning they grew up here, but they're hearing the two languages every day. So again, these languages are in your ear every day, so you're going to start, making up some words of your own, and this is how it's evolving. When she brought out the picture of the folder, well, we say, okay, it's cuaderno, but some teachers did say carpeta, and of course, well, carpeta would be a little bit appropriate, but some people did say folder. So they're already, adapting the pronunciation, to make it more like the English. Another one that came up was that when somebody said carpeta, wait a minute, no, that's your rug. And then somebody said, no, la carpeta se dice alfombra, because a lot of teachers will say to their students, vayan y siéntense en la carpeta, which like they think, well, carpet. But la carpeta is actually a folder. So again, that's where, you start seeing, if you've grown up here, you're kind of mixing, the English and Spanish and playing around with it there too. Another one that I thought was interesting when the stapler came up, and she mentioned, that mostly in Puerto Rico, España, and Mexico, they'll call it grapadora. And I remembered a student of mine who was, he had come straight from Mexico. He was a recent immigrant. He was trying to ask me for the stapler, and he kept saying the gramper, but he was adding the M to grapadora, and so he was saying gramper and making up, grampadora, gramper, making, adding the ER like an English noun. So I thought it was interesting the way that the language has evolved depending on the generations. Again, like I said, mainly second generation Mexican Americans, or where, if you grew up here in the borderlands, you're going to naturally come up with some new words. But I also liked hearing her perspective, giving us the terms from Puerto Rico as well to kind of differ. Like when we were seeing the autobús, I forgot to mention that they call it the guagua in Puerto Rico. And I never would have thought, to call it guagua. But it's interesting, and it's a good thing to be able to see how the social contexts are developing the language and giving us so much terminology. I know that she had us actually list and keep expanding so that we can see all the ways that one single item can be represented still in Spanish, but across different places.